Stop! You need to listen to this very carefully. There is a warning no one expected to hear, and it comes not from the news, but from the pets you thought you knew. Across small towns and quiet neighborhoods, reports are coming in. Dogs that used to greet their owners with wagging tails, that familiar smile, are now stopping. They no longer respond to commands. They sit quietly, staring, listening, and watching in ways that feel wrong. Authorities and local safety officials are puzzled, urging families to pay attention. They say it's not aggression you should fear, it's the silence. Dogs, cats, even some other pets are changing, behaving as if they can hear more than we do. They seem to sense things invisible to human eyes, and their stillness is not peace. It is focus, a kind of waiting. Some families have noticed their pets refusing to eat, refusing to move from certain corners, or following no routine at all. They stare at empty walls, ceilings, doors, and sometimes, when you speak, their gaze does not meet yours. Instead, it drifts past you, as if observing something you cannot see. These reports are not isolated. From Maine to California, from suburban streets to remote cabins, the behavior is spreading. Experts cannot explain it, and now it could be in your home. Watch closely, listen closely, because when your dog stops smiling, it might already be watching. The first confirmed case after the warnings came from a small, isolated cabin in the mountains of Vermont. The Millers had moved there for quiet and fresh air. Just a mother, a father, a teenage daughter named Lily, and their golden retriever, Bruno. At first, everything seemed normal. Bruno was cheerful and playful, his tail wagging constantly, and he often smiled in the way dogs do when they're happy. But then, slowly, something changed. It started one evening when Lily noticed Bruno sitting very still at the edge of the living room. His mouth was closed, no teeth showing, and his eyes were wide, unblinking, staring at the corner of the wall. She called his name softly. He didn't move. He didn't even twitch. Her father said it was fine, just him getting tired, maybe thinking. They all laughed nervously and went to bed. Later that night, Lily woke to a soft, almost whispering sound through the cabin. At first, she thought it was the wind, or maybe the old pipes, but the voice repeated, slow and clear, like someone learning her name. She froze. It sounded like Bruno, but not quite. Her heart raced. She reached out, but Bruno was lying in the hallway, still staring at nothing, his breathing steady and calm. The Millers thought it was harmless at first. Maybe the dog was sick or dreaming. Maybe the quiet, the isolation, was making them all imagine things. But Lily could not shake the feeling that the cabin itself was listening, that Bruno was not just sitting quietly. He was waiting, learning, practicing something none of them could understand. And in that silence, she began to notice that every small sound in the cabin, the creak of a floorboard, the whisper of the wind, seemed different, like it had a meaning only Bruno could hear. Over the next few days, Bruno's behavior grew even stranger. He stopped responding to his name entirely. Calls and soft commands bounced off him as if he were somewhere else, listening to things no one else could hear. Mirrors became his enemy. He avoided them completely, walking around them carefully, as if afraid of the reflection. Windows, too, were ignored, even when sunlight streamed across the cabin. Lily and her parents began noticing that Bruno spent hours standing in corners, staring at walls or into the air vents. Sometimes he would tilt his head, small movements like he was trying to understand a sound no one else could. They started hearing faint noises, too. At first, it was just soft breaths or the faint creak of the floor. But slowly, they realized these sounds seemed almost human. A whisper here, a sigh there, and sometimes words that felt familiar, but disappeared the moment anyone tried to find their source. One evening, Lily stayed in her room, listening. A slow, steady knock came from the kitchen wall. She froze. The sound stopped, then restarted, quieter but more careful. Her parents were asleep. She was alone with the noises, and Bruno, standing at the doorway, his eyes locked on the wall. The dog's chest moved slowly, calmly, and measuredly, as if matching the knocks and the faint echo of a voice. Lily could feel the tension in the cabin itself, like the air was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. It became clear the sounds were not random. Bruno wasn't just watching or listening. He was learning. Every small creak, every whisper, even the softest cough or shuffle from Lily or her parents to be copied by him in tiny ways. The imitation was not perfect yet. It was slow and careful, like a child practicing a new word. and it made Lily shiver, knowing that something familiar, something safe, was being studied by a creature she had always trusted. At night, the family would lie awake, hearing the softest echoes of their own movements or breathing from other rooms, or just outside the walls. Each time, Bruno stayed still, unblinking, as if he was waiting for a signal, learning, practicing, and preparing. And every day, the cabin felt less like a home and more like a place where silence was alive, listening, and shaping itself around the dog, who was no longer just a pet. By the next week, Bruno's behavior had crossed a line that Lily and her parents could no longer ignore. The faint echoes had grown clearer. At night, the dog would sit in the living room, perfectly still, his head tilted slightly, listening. Then, without warning, he began to copy the sounds of the house. A creak of the floor, a soft cough from Lily's dad, even the subtle rhythm of her mother's breathing. It all appeared again, coming from him. One night, Lily lay in bed, watching the ceiling. She could hear her own slow, steady breaths, and then, faintly, from the corner of the room, the exact same pattern, matching her chest movements. She froze. The sound was not a machine, not a recording. It was Bruno, her trusted dog, repeating her every inhale and exhale, as though he was learning her. Her parents tried to dismiss it, saying it was imagination or coincidence, but soon they couldn't. Audio recordings on their phones captured something impossible. Whispered words, softly spoken in the same tone and cadence as the family members, came from rooms that were empty, from walls and corners, and sometimes directly behind them. Every inflection, every pause, and even the slight hesitations in speech were mirrored perfectly. It was as if the dog had become a living tape recorder, but one that was trying to speak in their own voices. The cabin, once quiet and safe, now felt uncertain. Doors creaked as if in response to unseen footsteps. The family could not tell if a sound was theirs or Bruno's. Each night, the dog practiced more, his mimicry smoother and more natural, until even the sharpest listening ears could not distinguish reality from copy. The psychological weight grew unbearable. Lily began to question what she had actually said, what noises were real, and what had been repeated by the creature she had always loved. It was no longer just a dog. Bruno was practicing, learning, waiting, and the silence between sounds grew heavier, as though the cabin itself knew something was coming. Every copied breath, every echoed whisper, and every subtle knock was preparation, rehearsal, and a small step toward something the family could not yet understand. And yet, they could not look away. They could not stop listening. The more they heard, the more the line between human and pet blurred, and the deeper the horror sank into their minds. It started quietly, almost too quietly. One morning, Lily woke to find Bruno's bed empty. No scratches on the floor, no sound of doors opening. He had simply vanished. At first, she told herself he had wandered off, maybe chased a deer into the forest beyond the cabin. But then, in the soft mud near the cabin steps, she noticed strange impressions. They were paw prints, yes, but elongated and too sharp, almost like claws. And between them, faint, icy smudges, like tiny hands pressing into the dirt. Her parents searched the woods, the roads, and even the nearby town. No one had seen him. No animal, no sign, no explanation. Days passed. Then, one late afternoon, he returned. The same dog they had always known, but something was different. Bruno's fur had small patches that seemed oddly darker, almost as if shadows clung to him. His eyes, once warm, now held a strange, distant awareness, as though he was no longer fully there. And his mouth, when he yawned, there was a second, tiny mouth that moved in perfect sync, barely visible, whispering faint sounds Lily could not understand. The family felt tension they could not shake. They spoke less around him, their voices uncertain, as if speaking too loudly might awaken something hidden in his mimicry. At night, the faint echoes returned, but now they carried a subtle difference, a rhythm that was not quite human, not quite dog. Every sound felt deliberate, a small act of control they did not comprehend. Isolation sank in. Even when neighbors came by, the family could not confide in them, fearing disbelief. Bruno's presence had become a silent, looming force. His subtle changes, tiny movements, unusual breaths, uncanny stillness, made the house feel alive in ways it never had. The world outside the cabin seemed normal, but inside, everything was wrong. And yet, the most terrifying part was not his disappearance, or his return, or the second mouth. It was the sense that he, or something beyond him, was learning. Each day, each mimic, each small change in behavior added weight to a quiet, invisible plan. The family could not know what came next. They could only wait and listen, and feel the cold suspicion that nothing would ever be the same again. Authorities are now urging anyone living with pets to take immediate precautions. Experts warn that what you see is no longer safe. Your dog or cat may appear normal, playful even, but that is a dangerous illusion. Silence in a pet can mean more than obedience. It can mean attention. It can mean something you cannot see. If your pet stops responding to commands, stares too long, or moves unnaturally, do not dismiss it. Officials suggest limiting contact where possible and keeping pets under close observation. Mirrors and reflective surfaces are especially risky. They may trigger behaviors you cannot predict. Covering them temporarily can prevent what experts call focused mimicry. Do not try to call out to your pet in the usual way. Their listening now may not be simple comprehension. It may be learning, repeating, or anticipating. Ordinary sounds of your home, the hum of appliances, creaks in the floor, soft breathing, can all be absorbed and copied. The quiet moments are no longer safe. Families living in rural or isolated areas report unusual noises in empty rooms, whispers in hallways, and small movements caught in peripheral vision. It may be subtle at first, almost unnoticeable, but it grows. Do not ignore the signs. Observe without interacting. Wait without responding. Each day you delay, the risk increases. Remember, pets are not the same as they were yesterday. They are more attentive, more precise, and more aware. They may watch you while you sleep, and every small sound you make could be recorded and practiced when you are not looking. The expert's final warning is clear. Act cautiously, limit exposure, and never assume normal behavior means safety. And above all, remember this chilling truth. If it stopped smiling, it's listening now. To recap, pets that once seemed harmless now move, watch, and listen in ways you cannot understand. They ignore calls, mirror your actions, and vanish only to return change. Ordinary sounds, breathing, whispers, and footsteps are no longer safe. Every small noise may be observed, remembered, and practiced. Authorities have issued warnings, but even they cannot fully explain what is happening. Isolation, caution, and awareness are your only defenses. Remember, the quiet is not empty. It is full of attention you cannot see. Even now, as this story ends, the signs may be growing in homes just like yours. That lingering stare, the sudden silence, the tiny movement out of the corner of your eye, they are all part of something that continues beyond what you can witness. Stay alert, trust your instincts, and never assume what seems normal is truly safe. After all, if it stopped smiling, it's still listening.